Imagine trying to sneak into an incredibly exclusive, like super high security VIP room.
Right.
But you are explicitly on the bouncers do not enter list.
Like the absolute worst person to let in.
Exactly. And somehow you actually pull it off just by, I don't know, spelling your name a little differently on the entry form.
That sounds totally ridiculous.
It sounds like the plot of a heist movie. But that is exactly what a heavily sanctioned U.S. politician just did at the absolute highest level of global diplomacy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Welcome to this deep dive. We actually built this exploration specifically for you, the listener, because, if you love looking at multiple perspectives and connecting the dots, but you really just don't want to get buried under the endless chaotic noise of the daily news cycle, this is for you.
We have a really fascinating roadmap today.
We do.
We're breaking down a live broadcast transcript from EBC News, which is Dawson News, and it captured a truly monumental high-stakes event. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping meeting face-to-face in Beijing.
And the timeline here is crucial. This is their first face-to-face meeting in Beijing in 9 years.
Right. 9 whole years.
The last time this happened was way back in 2017. But look, this isn't going to be some dry recap of diplomatic handshakes.
Oh, definitely not.
The details coming out of this EBC broadcast are basically cinematic. I mean, we are talking about megacities completely emptied out, missing first ladies, and technology CEOs racing across the globe at the last minute just to get a seat at the table.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. And our mission today is to decode the choreography of this whole event. We need to figure out exactly what these two leaders are trading and really understand why the entire mood has drastically shifted since their last meeting.
Before we really get into the mechanics of this, I do want to set a clear ground rule for our discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the broadcast we're analyzing, it obviously touches on some of the most sensitive global politics of our time. And our goal here is strictly to impartially analyze the reporting that was provided to us. We are not taking political sides here, left or right. We're just putting the facts and the observations from the source on the table so you can understand the incredible dynamics at play.
Perfect. So to understand the actual negotiations, we really have to start by looking at the physical stage because the physical setup is never an accident. Right?
Never. Every single detail is planned.
Right. And the broadcast paints this incredibly vivid picture of President Trump leaving the Four Seasons Hotel in his official armored vehicle, the Beast.
The Beast.
And he takes this route right down Chang'an Avenue past Tiananmen. But it's not just a drive. The entire route was completely clear out. I mean, a total lockdown of the streets.
And you have to think about the scale of that for a second.
It's massive.
Beijing is a city of over 21 million people. It is a bustling, chaotic metropolis.
Right. So driving the Beast down a completely emptied Chang'an Avenue is basically like having the entire New York City grid shut down just for your morning commute.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
It's the ultimate power flex. But, I mean, it's a flex from the host just as much as the guest, right?
Oh, for sure. It demonstrates absolute state capacity. Beijing uses that tailored grandeur as a highly specific diplomatic tool.
So it's not just a security thing?
No. I mean, obviously the Secret Service wants a secure route, but it's about creating a visual vacuum. When the streets are completely empty, the only thing moving, like the only thing that matters in that moment, is the guest of honor.
Wow.
It's a projection of total control and absolute focus.
That is so interesting. And, the grandeur didn't stop at the empty streets. When they actually arrive at the Great Hall of the People, the reception is just dialed up to the highest possible diplomatic specification.
Oh, yeah. Top tier.
We're talking a full 21-gun salute, which, by the way, Trump actually saluted back to, and an inspection of the three services honor guard. Trump standing on the left, Xi standing on the right of the viewing stand.
But there is a really specific detail about the welcoming committee that stood out in the reporting.
Yes, the initial reception official. So Trump was greeted by Chinese Vice President Han Zheng, and the broadcast immediately compared this to that 2017 visit where he was greeted by State Councilor Yang Jiechi.
Right.
And I know diplomatic titles can sometimes sound like just a bowl of alphabet soup.
Yeah.
But an upgrade from state councilor to vice president is a major leap in the hierarchy.
Huge leap.
So why does Beijing make that specific change right out of the gate?
Well, in diplomatic protocol, rank elevation is basically the loudest way to send a silent message.
Oh, I like that.
By sending the vice president, Beijing is setting a baseline of maximum respect before anyone even sits down in a chair to talk.
They're laying the groundwork.
Exactly. They are establishing that they view this negotiation as top tier. But Beyond just the rank, they are also deeply customizing this respect to the psychology of the guest.
Yeah, and you really see that with the itinerary, too.
Yeah.
Because Xi Jinping personally introduced the surrounding geography, right?
Yeah.
He pointed out the Beijing Central Axis, which is a World Heritage Site.
Yeah, which mirrors exactly what happened in 2017 when Xi acted as a personal tour guide at the Forbidden City.
Right. And then look at what is scheduled for later in the day, a trip to the Temple of Heaven. The broadcast actually highlights that this location was entirely closed off to the public with watertight security, just for this visit.
And Xi is expected to act as the guide there as well.
Really? Just the two of them, basically.
Yeah. And why do they do that? Because Beijing is fully aware of Trump's strong interest in historical sites and grand pageantry. I mean, the Temple of Heaven is literally where emperors used to pray for good harvests.
Wow.
It is this incredibly potent symbol of ultimate authority. So they are tailoring the physical stage to fit the exact preferences of the guest.
That is wild. But, for all the things they put on display, there were some massive, glaring absences that seemed to physically alter the mood of the room.
Well, in high-level diplomacy, an empty chair often tells you way more than a full one.
Okay, so let's talk about the most obvious one. Melania Trump did not attend this trip. And because diplomatic protocol is essentially a strict mathematical equation, her absence triggered an automatic response.
Right.
Chinese First Lady Peng Liyuan was also absent.
The symmetry of protocol just absolutely demands it. A host First Lady cannot formally receive a guest if the guest's spouse isn't there.
Gotcha. So it's just a strict rule.
Yeah, and it might seem like a minor scheduling detail to us, but First Ladies act as diplomatic shock absorbers.
Shock absorbers.
Yeah. They host the cultural events. They facilitate softer interpersonal dialogue. So when they are absent, you immediately strip away this whole layer of social softening that usually accompanies these really tense summits.
That makes so much sense. But the missing faces didn't stop with the First Ladies. The U.S. business delegation, the corporate VIPs who usually tag along on these state visits, it was drastically smaller.
Significantly small.
Yeah, in 2017, there were 29 people in that business delegation this time, down to just 16.
Nearly cut in half.
But wait, couldn't a smaller delegation just mean they are cutting out the bureaucratic fluff? Maybe it's less about a lack of trust and more about getting straight to the heavy hitters.
I mean, you could certainly argue it's a leaner, more focused group. Sure.
Right.
But you have to look at that shrinking number alongside the corresponding shift in the overall tone.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, the EBC reporting explicitly contrasts the atmosphere between the two leaders. Back in 2017, during that Forbidden City tour, they were described as warm, chatty, having a lot of interpersonal banter.
Yeah, laughing together, really building a rapport.
Exactly. But this time, the transcript specifically highlights how quiet it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. While they were still polite and friendly, obviously, that warm interpersonal banter was largely just gone.
Huh.
So when you combine the missing social shock absorbers, the halved corporate delegation, and that much quieter atmosphere, it perfectly illustrates the hardened geopolitical reality.
So the honeymoon is over.
The initial honeymoon phase of 2017, that whole era of getting to know one another, is entirely gone. It has become strictly, coldly transactional.
Wow. Okay, so if the shrinking room signals a loss of trust and a shift to pure transaction, the obvious next question is, who actually makes the cut when only the absolute essentials are allowed in?
And the seating chart always gives away the plot.
Always. So let's look at the front row inside the Great Hall of the People. You have Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth attending for the first time.
Right.
And right alongside him is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who actually flew straight into Beijing from a meeting in South Korea. The military and the money literally sitting side by side.
The ultimate symbols of hard power and financial leverage.
But here's the detail that completely blew my mind. Sitting right there in the front row alongside them was U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
Marco Rubio is explicitly sanctioned by Beijing. Technically, he shouldn't even be allowed to step off the plane, let alone sit in the front row of the Great Hall.
It is a staggering diplomatic anomaly.
And the rumor the broadcast noted about how he pulled this off is just wild.
It really is.
Apparently, he bypassed the sanctions simply by changing his official name on the entry documents to its phonetic Chinese transliteration.
Rubio.
Yes, Rubio. Rubio using a transliterated name to bypass sanctions isn't just a quirky loophole, it's a diplomatic game of chicken.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's basically like a nightclub bouncer letting a band rival in through the kitchen. Both sides know exactly what's happening, but the bouncer is choosing to look the other way because that rival brought a suitcase full of cash.
That is a great way to put it.
Right. And in this case, that cash is American tech supremacy. But, I mean, how does Beijing justify swallowing their pride on their absolute highest diplomatic stage?
Well, because the stakes demand it.
Really? It's just worth it to them.
Yeah. To understand why Beijing tolerates a face-saving technicality, like a transliterated name, you just have to look at the other names in that room.
Okay, who else was there?
You had Tesla CEO Elon Musk,
Right.
Apple CEO Tim Cook, and crucially, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. And the reporting actually notes that he barely made it, catching a flight at the very last minute, all the way from Alaska.
Okay. And if you are listening and wondering why Jensen Huang flying in from Alaska actually matters to you, just think about this. Every time you use an AI tool, or every time a medical researcher models a new drug, or even a modern supply chain optimizes itself, you are relying on NVIDIA chips.
Exactly.
His presence in that room is exactly what keeps the modern global tech engine functioning.
Precisely. The U.S. delegation brought the ultimate modern leverage to the table, and that's AI chips.
AI chip.
Because artificial intelligence hardware isn't just some consumer product anymore. It is the fundamental infrastructure for the next century of military and economic dominance.
Wow, yeah.
So when the future of that hardware is literally sitting right there in your East Hall, both sides suddenly realize they have to prioritize technological survival over political posturing.
The sanctions take a backseat to the silicon.
I love how you phrase that. Sanctions really do take a backseat to the silicon.
And that brings us right into the East Hall, where the actual negotiations take place. Because the menu of topics they are sitting down to discuss is heavy.
Very heavy.
And you just mentioned the U.S. holding this immense leverage with AI chips. But the EBC reporting points out that China counters this with a massive trump card of its own. Absolute control over rare earth resources and their export rights.
Yeah, and this is where we really get into the brutal pragmatism of this summit.
Okay.
It is so important to understand how the rare earth monopoly actually works.
Right, because they aren't just like super rare to find in the ground, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
These elements aren't necessarily impossible to find elsewhere. The leverage comes from the refining process.
Oh, the refining.
Yeah. Refining rare earth elements is incredibly complex, it's highly toxic, and it's environmentally devastating. And over the last few decades, China essentially cornered the global market on that specific processing capability.
Wait, hold on. So if the U.S. holds the keys to the advanced AI chips, but you physically cannot manufacture those chips or Tesla batteries or Apple components without the refined rare earth elements that China controls.
You see where this is going?
It's a Mexican standoff inside a supply chain.
Yes.
Neither side can pull the trigger without essentially shooting themselves.
That is exactly what it is, a standoff of mutual dependencies.
Wow.
The U.S. desperately needs the refined rare earths to maintain its tech industry, and China needs the technology pathways and the AI hardware to power its own future economy.
So neither side can afford to flip the table and walk away.
Exactly.
But, you know, the agenda goes way beyond just supply chains and tech. They're also tackling massive geopolitical flashpoints.
Well, yeah.
The broadcast notes they are establishing a timeline for ending the Iran war. And then, of course, there is the most sensitive tripwire on the board, Taiwan.
The defining issue of U.S.-China relations.
The reporting specifically highlights that they are discussing U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. And it notes that this discussion directly impacts something called the historic 6 assurances established by President Reagan.
And this is a critical piece of context. To understand why this is so heavy, we really need to look at what those 6 assurances actually are.
Okay, let's unpack this for everyone listening.
Think of them like a foundational promise made by the United States to Taiwan all the way back in 1982.
So what exactly did we promise?
Essentially, the U.S. promised Taiwan several key things. We will not set a specific cutoff date for selling you defensive weapons.
Okay.
We will not consult with Beijing before making those sales. And we will not act as a mediator between Taipei and Beijing. It was a guarantee of baseline support.
So bringing this up at the table in 2026 isn't just a casual talking point about military inventory.
Not at all.
Is China testing the structural integrity of a 40-year-old foundational promise?
Exactly. So when Taiwan arms sales and Reagan's 6 assurances are placed on the exact same negotiation table as NVIDIA's AI chips and China's rare earth metals,
It's just mind-blowing.
you are witnessing a complete spectrum of leverage. It is a standoff where historical doctrines collide with next-generation technology.
It really is everything all at once.
Yeah.
So just to bring all these threads together for you listening, We started by looking at a 9-year gap, a gap that took us from 2017 to 2026 and really transformed what used to be a warm, chatty, relationship-building exercise into this highly choreographed, high-stakes, cold transaction.
And we saw that evolution in the optics right away.
Right,
The
yeah.
emptied-out 10-lane expanse of Tianjin Avenue cleared just for the beast. The calculated upgrade of the welcoming official to Vice President Han Zheng.
And the customized historical flattery planned for the Temple of Heaven completely shut down to the public.
Plus the visual shrinking of the room.
Yes. Having the corporate delegates down to just 16 and the absence of the First Lady stripping away that vital layer of diplomatic warmth.
And we really saw the extreme, almost absurd pragmatism of modern diplomacy in action here.
Oh, with Rubio.
Yeah, a sanctioned U.S. Secretary of State sitting in the front row under a transliterated name, simply because the stakes involving tech CEOs like Jensen Huang and Elon Musk were just far too high for Beijing to enforce their own ban.
It's wild. It all culminates in a room where the supremacy of American AI chips is directly traded against the chokehold of China's rare earth metals.
While also trying to manage the Iran war.
Right. And testing the boundaries of Reagan's historic promises to Taiwan.
It's a lot on one table.
It is. And for you listening, we really want to emphasize why this matters to your daily life, because this is not just distant political theater happening thousands of miles away.
No, it affects everyone.
The agreements struck in that East Hall dictate the cost of the smartphone in your hand right now. They determine the stability of the global supply chains that deliver everything from your car to your medical equipment.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, the temperature in that room sets the broader temperature of world peace over the coming decade.
It does. And, it leaves us with a rather profound paradox.
Yeah.
I want to leave you with this thought to mull over.
Okay.
We've seen that the personal chemistry and the warm banter of 2017 have entirely faded into this strict, cold, transactional diplomacy.
Right.
So what happens to global crisis management now? Does purely transactional diplomacy actually make the world safer because it is coldly logical, driven by mutual supply chain dependencies that prevent either side from acting recklessly? Or does it make the world more dangerous because it lacks any safety net of human goodwill when an unexpected, irrational crisis suddenly hits?
Wow. Yeah. When the predictable logic of the supply chain breaks and the waters get murky, you really have to wonder if cold pragmatism alone is enough to keep things from just boiling over.
The heavy question.
It really is a heavy question to consider as you watch these summits unfold. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.